Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today's an interesting project, and actually somebody who's got a lot of foresight. This rod and reel was brought into me. It's a locally owned customer, and he said it was his dad's reel and rod, and that's just been sitting in his shed for quite some time now, and he would like me to service this, clean it up as best I can. This one is really hard to turn. It's got a little bit of a bent handle, some other things, and that he said his dad purchased this, fished it for what he can remember. He'd like to have it restored and give it back to his dad for Father's Day. What a beautiful thought, right? So I agreed to do that, and I figured you guys can watch along with me as I do that. Interestingly enough, the rod has on there Daviga. Now, I don't know anybody in the Northeast that can recall it, but I can. Daviga was a little sports store in the New York City metropolitan area back in the 50s and 60s. So this reel is missing its badge. I think it's an Ocean City Sea Lake from what I can tell, but that's a guess. I guess we'll find out when we take this off underneath. But we're going to go do that, and hopefully we'll make somebody's Father's Day a really nice event. Now, there's not much I can do about a cracked wooden piece on the handle here or anything. I will clean up the rod as best I can. I'll clean up the reel seat and the like as well. So let's just do the reel for today. We'll learn a little bit about this reel. Again, I think it's an Ocean City Sea Lake. I could be wrong. And it's a direct drive reel that was made in the 50s and the 60s. And that would probably correspond with the time that this rod and that retailer was around, so that makes all the sense in the world. Okay, you can see a little bit about the bend in the handle. You want to be careful with these. These are old handles and knobs. These are barely turning. This, you can turn them, but it takes an effort. What we'll try and do with this is we'll let some penetrating oil get in there and work that out. Let's see if we have a name underneath. We do. This is the Ocean City Sea Lake. Kind of hard to tell through some of the greening underneath here. These are fun little reels. They're a direct drive reel. I think it says 930. Could be wrong there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just take the external pieces off. There's not much going on inside of a Sea Lake. We'll use some metal cleaner to see what we can do with that. You're never going to restore the balance of the reel with, well, that was an effort, with lost chrome. You'll never do that. But what you can do is you can take the greening off of it and do your best you can there. So we're kind of rusted up there. That's kind of an interesting statement by itself. So if we can't work that handle off. The reel was turning, but as I noted, it's turning very tight. And I just got a question, and one of the viewers said I got a Mitchell 300 that's in very good condition, but probably has never been serviced. And I'm a little bit nervous about getting the screws out of there. What can I do? And I said, well, one of the things you might want to do is kind of what I'm doing here. Just use penetrating oil, get all those moving parts areas kind of set up, and just let it soak for a while. This is WD-40, but any penetrating oil will do. And probably should hit the rust on that little handle screw there while we're at it. Okay, well, I'm going to just take a chance here and just see if we can't get these screws moving. These are flat-headed screws, and while I do this, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. We just got some fantastic news locally. Our town generally reports on new cases, new hospitalizations, things like that, and for the first time in months, we didn't have a single new case on one day. We still continue to have them sporadically, but they're at least they're in single and double digits now, and not the hundreds that we were having previously. But that doesn't mean the job's done. There's a lot of folks out there that are caring for the folks that are in the hospital. There's a lot of folks that are caring for the folks that have lingering effects of the piece, and there's still a lot of folks out there doing things like vaccinations and that to keep us safe. So thank you to all of you that are doing that. And even as we get announcements now that school will go back to full-time in-person sessions and all of that, a shout out to our teachers and administrators in the education fields for all they're doing to try and keep the kids on track with their learning schedules. Look how beautifully that just polished up, and that was using nothing other than the penetrating oil. I'm going to take that off and we can see why it's turning so poorly. It's just neglect. I understand that this one's been sitting in the shed for quite some time now, and it shows the effects of that. So we've got rust there. We're going to see if we can't remove the main gear from this one. I'm going to use the penetrating oil here as a degreaser or a cleaner. I'm going to do the same thing on the back of the main gear here. And we're just going to let that sit while we go and kind of do the rest of this. I'll do the same thing on the inside of the spool. Let's find out if that's dirt or rust. Using a paper towel to clean it down. A little bit of rust there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to shut my camera off. I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab my bottle of Flitz, which is a metal pre-cleaner. That should take a lot of the salt and corrosion off of this. And we'll be right back. I'll bring the bottle back with me so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're just a few minutes later. I had mentioned Flitz. I'm not a product hawker or anything like that, but I do let you know when I find one that works. This is Flitz metal pre-clean. You spray it on, you wipe it off, and generally from a saltwater perspective, it works pretty darn good. This is no effort required whatsoever, and all of the salting on the reel is off. Now, it didn't take all the greening off in that. I wouldn't expect it to, but at least it cut through layers of the tarnish and the like. And now I'm going to use an automotive polish. It's Total Wax's chrome polish, and I'm going to just use that to get the remaining piece of the green off. As I mentioned, you're not going to reset the splendor of the bright work. That'll never happen, because the salt water has worn all of that away, but you will polish it and you will be able to get most of the greening and the like off of it. And I'm using a 4.0 steel wool. I don't want to be aggressive on this. You could actually kind of boil a reel, I guess, and you can get it right down to the brass or whatever the backing is that was on this before it got chromed. But I'm just trying to keep take the greening off of it that was causing the corrosion on the spool, and not much more. Again, I don't mind a patina, and that's kind of what this is about, right? This reel's got a story to tell, and I'm glad that the fellow who brought it in, I was thinking about his dad and kind of giving him another moment of saying, hey, Dad, look, that reel that you kind of gave up on, the one that wasn't turning, that wound up in the closet or the shed or wherever it was forever, we just put it back on the pole. Let's go fishing for Father's Day. What a nice thought. All right, we're just going to clean this side of it off. This is a direct drive reel. The spool gear does come off, but there's nothing there that's controlling the castability. There's no free spool. There's nothing but a knuckle buster in this case. You cast and retrieve with the reel in gear. That's the nature of this reel. They call them knuckle busters because if you don't keep your knuckles out of the way on these handles, you're going to hit your hand. Alright, this is rust. There's not much you can do with rust. I'm just going to use the steel wool to get down as much as I can. And the last piece of this, we can notice that there's a decisive bend in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Okay, so there's been a lot going on. We used our steel wool and chrome polish to clean up the balance of this after we used the Flitz. That was in good condition. We've been soaking the one side plate with the penetrating oil, but we should have done the other as well. Now, if I'm not happy with the results internally on this and externally, I will go back and put this in an ultrasonic cleaner, but for now we've done about what we can do with this reel, and we'll see. And then the other thing that's happened, which is very good, is that the knobs are starting to turn on the wheel, on the handle. So between straightening that handle out and putting a little bit of penetrating oil on there, we've got handle knobs that are turning. I'm just going to use a little bit more. Set that off as we go to kind of rebuild the rest of the reel then. So let's go mop up the rust stains from this side, and that just wiped off very easily, so I don't think I need the ultrasonic cleaner for this. And we mentioned that the front side of this was in beautiful condition, and then let's go do the same over here on this side. So a very simple reel here. It's what's called a direct drive, as I mentioned earlier on when I started this. Sometimes the old-timers like me refer to these as knuckle buster reels because you can hit your fingers with them when you're casting if you're not careful, and thus the idea of busting your knuckle. And we'll show you that when we get this assembled. There is no adjustment on the side plate here for a bearing or spool retainer or anything. Again, about as simple as these reels can get. I like the way that this Bakelite or well, I forget the other term that they use for these quasi-plastic side plates is, but regardless, I like the way they clean up. And we're going to start the reassembly then by going with the fishing reel grease in the little spool carrier. I'm going to use Penn Precision reel grease. I use that pretty much on all of my reels. I make mention often, I don't care what fishing reel grease you use, who's the manufacturer, just make sure that it says fishing reel grease on it. Don't get yourself stuck with axle greases and automotive greases and airline greases and whatever. They all have different applications. Go with the one that's designed for the fishing reels. As I'm doing this, I'm just noticing there's a little bit of greening left over here. I'm going to take that same steel wool that I was using on the spool just to clean that last little bit off of that. Make it as pretty as we can before we reinstall. Okay, we're going to wipe that down then. This is a good time to suggest to you that if you like these types of videos, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, hit the notification button. That way when I do post my videos, you'll see what I'm doing as a project. And if you like that particular reel or have one of them and you want to rebuild it, then you'll have the opportunity to see it when it's released. Also, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. And I do try to respond to most questions, or at least the ones I have a chance to respond to and know the answers to. I don't know the answers to everything. Somebody asked me today what the difference between a DAM 550 and a DAM Super is. And I know a little bit about it, but I can't say definitively everything about it. So, you know, I'll mention what I can, and what I can't, so be it. Okay, I just pushed the little connector pin out of the main gear. It's just going to help me wipe that down a little bit. We saw a lot of rust on this, so you do want to see what you can do there. I have a flat file, a very fine file, that sometimes if you just run it over it, you might be able to knock some burrs off of it. Of course, it's on a rounded surface, so just be careful. You don't want to further pit the piece with that, but sometimes just kind of running it as a general scraping does help, and I think it'll help in this case. All right, you're in good condition there. You want to do the same thing on the main gear that you just did on the bending gear. You want to check the teeth, make sure that they're all flush, straight, not clogged with any greases or junk or debris or anything. It has a couple of old pieces of residue left in there, so I'll knock those out. And it'll be good to see just how this does perform once we put this back in. So 2 pieces to grease on this. You want to grease the teeth, and you want to grease that shaft that I'm currently holding the gear by. That's one of the reasons I wear this protective latex glove. I want to keep as much of these greases and that off of my hand as I can. And sometimes, like this one, it's almost impossible to do what you need to do and not get it on your fingers. So the more precaution you take, the better. There's one more little cavity here for the other side of the spool. Make sure you get some grease in that. And then we can put the main gear back in. And we can go to reassemble the reel. I'm just going to turn that by hand. Yep, that seems like it's doing a nice job. And then we'll just merge the two here. Put some grease onto the axle shaft there. Align the holes. And we'll go ahead and put some screws back in. Well, I just didn't do myself a favor there. I just pushed that in. So I think the next thing we want to do is put that handle back on. That's because when I just pushed that side plate in to align it, push the main gear in, and I guess you can't fish it out easily. Alright, well, at least get it started. I like to start them by hand. You might not be able to finish this one right now. There we go. Now we can put it back in with the assurance that it's not going to fall inside the reel. We'll do the same thing here. We'll align that cavity, align your slots. All of these side plate screws were the same. You do want to check that when you do take a reel apart. Sometimes they're not going to be the same. In this case, I don't have the holes properly aligned here. So finally, if you have a reel that needs to be repaired, well, I do that too. You're kind of looking over my shoulder in my shop, but I do repair reels, and if you would like some information on that, then please contact me. I'll be happy to provide you with that information. So I still have the holes misaligned here. We'll get it right eventually. That's much better, except that I just dropped this screw on the floor. We'll go get that. I have a solid plastic sheet underneath me that catches those screws. Well, at least it allows the screws to bounce off. I don't know how many times it catches, but I don't panic as much with that piece there. I used to have a carpet under me, and that was terrible. Every little spring that shot and every little screw that fell off the darn thing tended to get caught in the napping of the carpet, and well, there you go, right? Okay, one more to go here. And I'll go grab the one that's on the floor to finish this project off. So if you want that reel repaired, if you have one and you don't want to do it yourself, you can contact me on the information on the business card that follows. I'll be happy to provide you with that information, and we'll try and get that reel turned around so that you can take it fishing again. Or in this case, if you have a reel that your dad fished with and you want to make a Father's Day present, what a great idea. Well, contact me. We'll see if we can get you that done by Father's Day. All right, I'm just going to mop my desk up here. We'll give this a little try. We'll go put it back on the rod. I will use some rod and reel cleaner to do what I can with that rod, and then we're going to pass this one back and hopefully make somebody's Father's Day very special. So here we go. Well, what a difference, huh? You got a nice little reel running here, and as you can see, this is why they call it the knuckle buster. If you were casting like this and you don't watch your hands, you're going to get your knuckles slapped. So there you go. The Ocean City Sea Lake 930, perfect gift for Father's Day. A rebuild and a servicing on that one. No squeaks. Nice smooth running reel. Ready to go fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.